Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen. It's Dr. Mary Payton with All About STEM Radio. As you know, I come to y'all every Monday from 7 to 8 p.m. Central Time. As y'all know, I bring to y'all some of the most amazing guests in the world. But today I have a guest that I met her, maybe 9 years ago, and my son was taking music lessons at the studio where she also gives piano lessons, and she called me in her classroom, and she goes, "You've got to hear this. You got to hear this." She had this cute little 5-year-old boy, 5, 6-year-old boy, and he had his little iPad, and he had his music up there, and this was music that this young man had written himself. This was not music he was playing from someone else. So, without any further ado, I want to introduce to y'all Linda, and she is going to tell y'all a little bit about herself. So, Miss Linda, can you tell my people about you this afternoon?
Sure. My name's Linda Johnson. It's evening where I'm here in Texas. I'm still sitting here at the studio. I just finished teaching all day again. I teach at Music Lovers Learning Center. I've been teaching piano here probably about 10 years. I think I've lost track. It's been so long. I founded Match Studio and Consulting, and the studio part is the piano lessons and music theory that I offer. And then also I do consulting work with arts integration, STEAM, and also in music education. And so I was in the classroom for 23 years. I've taught general music. I've taught AP music theory. I've taught choir, elementary, middle, high school. I've done all of those things. I even got to teach English one year, which was very frightening, but it was also an exciting thing because I immediately figured out how I was going to integrate music with my language arts lessons that I taught. And I use that a lot in a lot of the consulting that I do now. And then also I am an arts integration specialist and a coach for the Institute for Arts Integration and STEAM, and I produce some content for them for their Accelerator magazine and also just for their website and for their institution in general. So that's pretty much about me.
Well, y'all, like I've said, I've known her for quite a while, and one day I just saw her name pop up since I've been here on island. I said, you know what, I need to call Linda. And this was a couple of months ago, and we got to talking, and she was telling me some of the things that she was doing in STEAM, and I'm like, you know what, this is amazing. I've had a lot of artists on the show, but behind every good STEM/STEAM person, there was always, other than their parents, there was always a good STEM/STEAM teacher. Now, I want to ask you a question. Why do you think the arts is an important part of a student's education?
Arts is important because it allows students to make their learning personal. It's to them, and it allows them to be creative and to be themselves. There's a lot of talk going on right now about culturally responsive teaching. And being culturally responsive, a big part of that is getting to know your students and understanding your students. And everybody doesn't learn the same way. And arts is another way, another access points for students to learn. And I remember a long time ago when gifted and talented to get into the program, they gave you a battery of tests. And now you're allowed to nominate students if they have other talents in areas that they're gifted in, including the arts, which is very important because a person who may be really good in music is probably also really good in math, but they show it a different way. It's not going to manifest in the way that we do it in the classroom. But if you can reach that, then that allows that student to be able to actually excel in their academic areas as well as the arts. But the arts is just important because it's just self-expression, and it allows us to be creative. It allows us to make things our own. And that's something that makes us human. And it makes us want to connect to one another. And it's something that everyone can relate to, whether it's dance or theater, whether it is music, art, or media arts, whatever works for that particular child. It's important for us to allow those students to discover their interests and their gifts in the arts as well as academics, because it'll all relate and tie up together in the end.
And you're so correct in what you're saying, because a lot you can, when kids are little, how do we teach them their ABCs?
You sing them.
A, B, C, D. And even numbers, you teach them 1, little 2, little 3, little Indians. Okay, y'all, my bad voice is coming across, but that's okay. Yeah, Linda learned something about me the other day that she didn't know, but we're not going to talk about that on the show. But, a lot of their growing up with their parents and their grandparents at home, they learn by song, or they learn by colors and shapes and sizes, and it's a big visual thing. And so, that's amazing. I mentioned at the top of the show that you had called me in to listen to a young man play his own song on the piano. Mm-hmm. How do you work with young people to get them to write their own music, to take that, piece upon themselves?
I take them and meet them with where they are and what they know. I mean, I go into basically, it's like your schema. What do you already know? What can you already relate to? And I take those things, those bare things that they know, and then we'll start with just something simple. And what I like to do, I like to call it a menu. It's like you have a menu. So, okay, so quarter notes, so paired eighth notes, quarter rest. That's all you know. Okay, so C, D, E, F, and G. Let's make up a melody using these things that you know. And that's how we start. And then I always like to use a digital audio workstation, something like, at that time I was using GarageBand, but I also use Soundtrap, and there's other ones that you could use. But because the iPads, GarageBand was so accessible, I would go ahead and let them create some type of rhythmic pattern with a loop that was already there, or with something with the drum machine where they could create that. And now they can actually put what they wrote, what they created, with some type of rhythm pattern, and now becomes cool. So it's funny because when they do it, I'll share it with their parents, and they're like, "Oh, this is so cool!" And it's like, "Can you send that to me?" And I'll send it to them, and they're like, "Hey, that's going to be my new ringtone." I mean, so some create things, and they're so proud, and it's fun because as soon as we do it, one of the first things we do is we'll send it, like, "You want me to send this to your grandma?" Because your grandmas always pay for piano lessons in many cases, and they're like, "Yes," and that's their new ringtone. So when kids do their own things, they're proud of it too, and they take ownership, and then they give you more, and they want to do more because they have ownership of it.
And you're talking about that, and my son went through Music Lovers playing guitar, and the opening tune that you heard, that was him. That was Aaron. He played it. He wrote it. I know it's just the phrase from my show, but that was him. He produced it and handed it off to Fishbowl, and they put it in as my opening for my show. Now, we had spoke earlier about your work with teachers in teaching STEM integration in the classroom. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Sure. Right now I'm a coach with the Institute for Arts Integration in STEAM, and teachers go through a year-long program where they learn to be arts integration specialists. And the main thing that we teach them is how to align standards. So that's the basic thing that we teach them. We teach them a lot of things, but one of the main things that they have to learn at the very beginning is how to take a standard from the arts and a standard from a core subject and align them with the correct cognitive development. Make sure that you make a lesson C that ties everything together. Because what a lot of people do is they'll use the arts in service of the content area. So an example that Susan Riley, she's the founder of the Institute of Arts Integration STEAM, she always uses the example of, let's do the song 50 Nifty United States. So you sing the song and you learn all of the names of the states through a song, but that's not arts integration because there was no music concept or music standard that was actually addressed. And so what's so neat is when we get teachers to learn how to do that, you realize on such a deep level how well everything is really intertwined, because we can find common verbs. And even if they're not common verbs, things that are similar together, because you have lines of symmetry in math. Well, you're also going to have things that are symmetrical in art, right?
Yeah.
So you can actually go and look and find some of those same verbs, and you can line them up and say, oh, well, then you can take theme in music and you can take theme in language arts and put that together. And so there's so many things that you can look for those things and then begin to do it. But the standard for both the arts and for the content areas, they need to be taught equitably and they need to be assessed equitably. And in the final, whatever the final project is, or whatever and not even have to be a project, it can be an assessment. It doesn't have to be a big, huge project. And sometimes we just use strategies, just certain strategies. Like one of the ones I like to use is soundscapes. And so when we use soundscapes, we are creating an imagery just like you do in language arts, but you're saying, what does it sound like? You know, what does something sound like? If you want to take you're reading a book and it's in the setting is in a tropical island, like Hawaii. So yeah. So what do you make? Or it's in a rainforest. You know, so let's take our voices and found sounds in the room and let's go ahead and make it sound like that. And let's create, and the kids will remember what the setting was because they made it their own. And we do too much teaching to the test and teaching what's in the book and not finding things and making the kids own. The student choice is so, so very important. Because if you notice now on Blooms, the tops of Blooms is now creativity.
Yes.
They've changed. Yes. And that's a nod to, you can know all of the technical things in the world, but if you don't know how to communicate it with the 21st century skills, and if you're in creativity is right up in there with it, then nobody's going to understand it. Nobody's going to listen to what you have to say because you don't know how to present it. And then you can't think outside of the box with those critical thinking skills because you're not being creative, because it's like there's too much of there's a right answer and there's a wrong answer. And it's not necessarily the right answer and the wrong answer, but what is the best answer that's going to suit this particular situation that we're in.
And see, that's the thing is, I've always been in a lot of trouble in school districts I've taught at, is because I teach to the why. I've never taught to the test. I've taught to the why. Why are we doing this? Why do we do this? Because I was just working with my kids in HTML, and now we don't write a lot of code in HTML. We have a lot of things that are already authored systems, and it is a Ouija where it's what you see is what you get. And you can type it on there, but then you can look on the back of the code and you can make adjustments back there if you want to, but you don't write those lines of codes anymore. I remember working at USAA and writing 3,500 pages of code to revamp a lot of their systems. And I showed my kids, the front end and the back end of HTML, and they looked at that. They're like, we're going to learn to write that? Yeah, you're going to learn to write it. And they were like, really? I'm like, you got this. You can do this. But you got to teach to the why. Why are we doing this? Why is it applicable to me? What can I do with this in a different situation? And I like how you're doing that and how you're looking at it. You're bringing things together instead of making everything. Music is here, science is here, math is here. Why are they not the same thing? I mean, why can they not integrate together? Now, you mentioned earlier that you are at where you're working at now is at Music Lovers. How would someone get in touch with you to either do music lessons, or a teacher wanting to work STEAM integration in their classroom?
My website is just lindajohnson.org. Just my name. I couldn't believe it. I was like searching domains. I was like, well, Linda Johnson, and I was looking, and I was like, .org. I was like, you got to be kidding me. So I was like, I grabbed it as soon as I saw that. So yeah, lindajohnson.org is my my website. And when you go there, to actually direct you to other certain places. Like there's one that'll show you about music studios if you're interested in it, and then the other one will take you to information about consulting. It'll also show some of my work there, and then also something else that I've been working on with a group of educators. We've done an ed camp, and so that's something that we'll be doing again in October. And so I have that, and so I'm getting approval for another ed camp arts, because it seems like all the ed camps were really great ideas, and I never saw one for arts. And so with all of the things that are happening in the world and in our country, I wanted to find a way where arts educators could get together and exchange ideas in a virtual ed camp. So we pulled that off this summer, and everybody was like, are you going to do it again? We're like, well, okay. So we're going to do it in October, and we plan to do one every spring, every summer, and in fall. So we're going to do 3 of those a year. So that information's on there as well.
Okay. Now, can teachers get professional development credit for that?
Yes, you can get professional development through EdCamp. You sure can. Yeah. And
yeah, because right now it's hard to get PD. It is hard to get PD because you can't go to conferences anymore. So, yeah.
Everything's online now, and it's amazing. And you have to do the online conferences for everything. But yes, it is free. And it was amazing because the first one, we didn't have a lot of people attend because we didn't really advertise. Actually, Nicole Taylor everybody needs a Nicole Taylor in their life. She's awesome educator, and she just did the Rethink Relearn Summit, and she had done an ed camp, and she'd always told me about it when we used to work together in another school district. And so she had this online one and invited me, and I was like, this is awesome. I was like, this is what we need in the arts. And she's like, so when are you going to do yours? I'm like, what? It's like, when you're going to do yours, I'll help. I'm like, you kidding? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, okay. And she like pushed me over that cliff, and I did it. And so here I am with doing another ed camp because of that. So that's how that happened. But yeah, I think you can get 3 or 4 hours because it's only, it's like a 9 to 12 or 2 to 5. It's just one of those things. But we had people from all over. There's some people from Europe there down there, and Canada and Alaska. And I'm like, wow, it was pretty amazing to find out what was going on in education, in the arts, and the problems that we were all having with online learning. And how, just in every area, dance, they're like, how do I teach dance virtually? It's like, I can't touch them. I can't correct them. I can't, hold, you get your body in certain positions or whatever. You can't do those type of things. So it's just a lot of things that are really interesting that you would normally do in a group setting. It's like, well, how do I go about doing that or doing it in person? I can't do it anymore. So we exchanged a lot of ideas. And then one thing that came up was also, if you're in one of those situations where they say there's no singing. Like at my daughter's school that she teaches at, their district, they said no singing for the first 9 weeks because we don't think it's safe. And so you have all these reports and all these studies coming out. So there's different levels and different areas of what people say. So what do I do now? So a lot of people are starting to look at arts integration, or looking at STEAM and finding out how can they still keep their jobs. Because I know in some places, a lot of people, I'm looking at my Facebook groups, they're like, I lost my job because it put you in a box and say, this is the only way you can teach this art form. And it's like, no, because we work so well with all the other areas. So just like everybody else is pivoting, give us a chance to pivot too. And so that's what we're trying to do, is empower other teachers to be able to pivot.
And, that is, I'm sitting here and I'm wishing that my music teacher here at our school was, I don't know if she's listening in or not, because I'm not doing Facebook Live, and she usually catches me Facebook Live. So I'm gonna have to make sure I send her the link to this show so she can catch you. But, I've had all kind of musicians and things like that on the show, but I haven't had someone on your side of the mirror, the teacher looking at how to integrate it with other subjects on the show. But, you're so right in everything you're saying. What are we going to do now? Because I know you made a major pivot with what you're doing. You don't have students coming to your classroom anymore or your studio anymore, which I'm loving the things you have on your wall. But how are you working with students now, and how is that going?
More than one camera, for one thing. And one thing that I realized I had to make some people, like, we did a little drop, like, exchange at the studio. I'd like stick it outside there. It's like, you're coming, okay, I'm gonna put it outside the door and you can grab the bag. I did some drive-bys. And I put together little packets with certain things that I needed and supplies, just like other teachers are doing, where the parents are doing the drive-bys and picking up the materials. I had to do the same things too, because one thing that is very important with music is you've got to have some manipulatives. You have to have things that kids can, and I would use clay, Play-Doh. I'd use popsicle sticks. I'd have all instruments, all kinds of little things that the kids would do things with, especially my younger kids. But even the adults, I've actually am working on, I've been collecting bottle caps to the water bottles. Yeah. And I've been writing the names of just the alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And I'll do like 4 sets of it. And I'm doing sharps and flats, because they're doing chords. And so sometimes I'm trying to explain to them, here's C, E, G. Okay, so if I put C on top and invert it, it's still the same chord. It has the same ingredients. It's just like you build a sandwich. What order do you want to put? Do you want to put the bread on first, or do you want to put the lettuce on first? But it's still the same kind of sandwich. It doesn't matter how you stack it. And so they're able to take those and manipulate those. And I've got to get that to them, because right now I just use one of my cameras as a document camera, and I just point it down and I show them, and they're like, oh, wait a minute. So if you switch, I'm like, yeah. And it's amazing that adults forget that visuals and manipulatives are just as important. They think they're just going to sit and do it the old fashioned way. And I have about 5 now. I just got a new one. I think I have about 5 senior citizens out of my group. And I love them, because when we're learning and I show them and they get something new, they're very excited about it, especially when we're doing chords, because they learn how to play those oldies but goodies, that doo-wop and their old stuff.
I'm not going to tell you what my favorite song is right now, because you're going to laugh. But
what?
Go ahead on. I have to tell you what I called you.
Tell me after we get off there. Okay, but yeah, so I've been doing that, but like I'll have the camera where it'll show my hand so they can see that, and then I also got some software where if I am using an electronic piano, it'll show the chords, and then sometimes it'll show the staff with the chords. But wow. I have to. I forgot the name of it. It's Classroom Maestro, or something like that. But it's been a really good tool, because one thing, teaching as a classroom teacher for teaching music, and I've taught all levels, it's like, as my mother says, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So it's like, if you don't get it this way, okay, let me turn it around this way. Let me try this angle. Let me try that angle. And I keep trying different angles till you get it. And that's what I had to do online. And so I have to figure out, like, I have some kids, they're singers, so they're not getting it. It's like, okay, why don't you sing it? Sing it in solfege. And so they'll sing the melody in solfege. I said, okay, now play it perfectly. Because one, they have a good ear. But students with a good ear, I can't play it for them, because then they'll pick it up and then they'll play it. They don't learn anything. They're just going on their gift. I want them to make them read it. So when they do solfege, they read it, they heard it, but I still made them read in the way that they understood better. And now they take it and they can play it on the piano and they recognize those notes. So I just have to figure out how each person learns and have a lot of patience.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Now we've got like a couple minutes left, but I want you to talk about, you made one more pivot in this pandemic, and that was you're also writing music for how do I say it? I can't say for coding, but I guess I can say for coding. You're working with Nicole Kane. I think that's her last name.
She reached out to me, and with her elementary, which is a wonderful, wonderful app.
And I'm using it.
Yeah, and so I've got to actually do a sound haiku with her. And so you can, as a musician, you can actually submit your own pieces of music that can be used. So basically, and I hope I'm doing this justice, with elementary, what it is you have, it's kind of like a PowerPoint, so to speak, and you can write your own story, and you can select pictures, and you can select music that's already made. And those pictures have been submitted by artists. And same thing as far as musicians are considered. So I'm planning on submitting some music for that. And then you write your text. So you write a story. But on the opposite side, she has this event graph, and that's where you do the coding. And so, like, you can set up a song, like a little theme song to kind of introduce and set the mood. You can do a voiceover, record your voice. And like what I did was I used instruments to kind of create imagery with whatever I was narrating in the story. And so it's really something that's fascinating because students are able to write, but they're also code, but they're also able to be creative and artistic as well, because realizing just any type of production that you see, people see a television show, they don't realize all of the things that go into it. People listen to the radio or listen to something on iTunes or anything online, and you just hear that, but you don't see all of the stuff that goes behind it. And so it's so neat to be able to have this up, because I struggle with the coding because that's not my strong point, but I can write a story and I can do some music and make it all pretty with the arts and stuff that I've got there to pick from. But then when I get on the coding side, I'm like, okay, now what do I do next? But it's great because it's stretching me. And so it satisfies the creative side, but it's also, trying to figure out this tells this what to do. But I mean, if I can do digital audio workstations, I can do coding. Yep. It's just something and figuring out how to get done. So it's been challenging. And so I'm working on some things with her that I want to do and just show how to, not just music, but just the arts in general, how that can be done, but especially music.
Okay. Well, Linda, let me tell you something. This has gone so quickly. We've already gone over time. So, but Gary, he hasn't yelled at me. So I love you, Gary. So hopefully I'm not in any trouble. But will you once again tell my audience how to get a hold of you, where to find you? And you know what? I just want to thank you for being part of the show today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. This has been so much fun. Okay, my website is lindajohnson.org, and then you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Linda Johnson MSC. And MSC stands for Match Studio and Consulting. So try to make my name there, and you can find me.
Okay. Well, hey, Linda, I want you to keep doing what you're doing. And y'all, just because you cannot go to the studio to take lessons, she has pivoted. She is doing lessons virtually.
Website. I'm sorry. That's mymusiclovers.net.
Okay.
Mymusiclovers.net is actually will take you to the website for music lovers. And so Charles McCampbell, let me plug in Charles McCampbell, who lets me work here.
Well, Charles is how I met you. And I've known Charles for almost 20 years.
Guitar, drums, and voice, any type of percussion. And as I always say, I'm just a piano teacher. I'm the piano teacher, and he does everything else you can imagine.
Yes. Well, hey, Linda, thank you for being on the show today. And everyone, we will have another great guest next week. And I have got to put in one more plug for my favorite restaurant here on the Big Island, Ken's Pancake House, although they serve more than pancakes. And so I'm trying to eat my way through their menu 1 week at a time, one one entree at a time. So until next week, thank y'all, thank y'all, thank y'all. And please, please, please continue to be part of our STEM community here at Fishbowl Radio Network. Bye-bye.